Welcome into A to Z Sports prime time on a Wednesday night. Hope you're having a good evening and hope you're ready to get into a lot of Titans discussion over the course of tonight's show. We're going to spend some time on Julio Jones, the news that was announced or reported by Ian Rappaport earlier today about Julio and AJ Brown and potentially their availability for Sunday against the Jets and for future games moving forward, week to week, basically, for both individuals. We'll talk about Derrick Henry and what that means, what that's going to mean for Derrick Henry's workload and how that might affect what's already a pretty impressive start for him, but on a lot of carries, a lot of touches so far, very early in the season. We also have a couple tweets from Titans great Keith Bullock, who was very, very passionate and very blunt about his feelings on Taylor Lewan's situation and the way that he's performing and how he responded to being booed. So an interesting show, a variety of different Titans topics prepared for you this evening, and something that I'm looking forward to getting into with you guys over the course of tonight's show. Before we get going in full force, I need you guys to share this show around. If you're hanging out on Facebook Live like Carlos Marino or like Jordan Pierce, you can share now to public on Facebook Live. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Jordan Pierce adds NWI's Day to Shine. In fact, NWI's on my radio show tomorrow at 11:45. So make sure you're listening to that, and we'll ask him how it feels to be Titans wide receiver one, basically moving into New York week. If you are hanging out with us on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Your Twitter folks can get involved that way. If you're hanging out on YouTube or on Twitch, we would appreciate you subscribing to the A to Z Sports channel, where you can get live stream content 7 days a week and many days, twice a day. Kenston has his relaxation tools prepared for the show on YouTube. So hopefully we can keep him entertained throughout the course of this evening's show. David Dandy wants to know if I'm going to come tailgating this weekend. Well, if you're in New York, I'll be in New York. I'm not going to tailgate, but I'll certainly be there. So I hope to see a lot of you at the game. But in the meantime, let's talk about this game, and let's talk about who will, or more importantly, who may not be playing. Welcome into A to Z Sports prime time on a Wednesday night from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford is the official headquarters of the 2021 Ford Bronco and so many other cool Ford vehicles. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet is where you can find them. And if you can't find them on the lot, you can do your research, do your window shopping online at tworiversford.com. DraftKings Sportsbook, promo code A to Z Sports gets you in on all the action, whether you're betting tonight's Yankees-Blue Jays game or whether you're getting in on the NFL offers that they have for you, college football as well. Promo code A to Z Sports. Make sure that you can participate at great length. Brymak Mechanical, satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. BRYMAK, Brymak.com. And of course, the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, your dream address without the stress, with the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans and the Nashville Predators and A to Z Sports prime time. So the news today from Ian Rappaport was this, and I'll read the tweet directly from you, given that he was reporting on this earlier today. Ian Rappaport this morning, and also I didn't even think to add this as a part of the show, but as Isaiah Wilson is going to be in New York at the same time as I'm going to be in New York, because he apparently signed on to the Giants practice squad today, also reported by Ian. But so Rappaport says, could the Titans be without their top two wide receivers this Sunday? ? Wide receiver Julio Jones is getting treatment on a leg injury, and his status versus the Jets is up in the air, sources tell me, and Tom Pelissero. AJ Brown may also miss a week or two with a hamstring injury. So it's both of them that are dealing with hamstring issues. Julio Jones was on the injury report with a hamstring today, as was AJ, obviously. So it's possible that they're without Julio and AJ against the Jets and maybe games into the future. Now, what you would say automatically, or at least what many of you would say, is that, well, damn the Jets, damn the Jags. Let's see if the Titans can get them healthy, the two of them, for Buffalo on Monday Night Football here in Nashville, and then the following Sunday on a short week. The Kansas City Chiefs will be traveling to Nashville as well. So 2 road games back to back, and then 2 home games of really, really substantial AFC playoff implication consequences. Now, Jacksonville also matters for your postseason aspirations because, of course, the easiest way to get into the playoffs is to win your division. And so far, the division around the Titans appears to be quite bad. But those 2 games are obviously critical if you're looking for, if you're looking for the top seed, frankly, with the Chiefs struggling early on the way that they are and the ability for you to capitalize on those games. Certainly the Bills look to be hugely impressive, and the rest of the AFC is kind of up for grabs this year, it would seem. So with that in mind, the question that I want to ask you, and start off with your Two Rivers Ford take, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about the Titans wide receiver depth? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, if you would be kind enough, and we will get into the conversation here at greater length. Let me know on A to Z Sports Prime Time, your Two Rivers Ford take. How concerned are you on a scale of 1 to 10? While you guys do that, I will remind you about the people who present your Two Rivers Ford take. That, of course, is Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford has the Built For You program, which provides you the exact Ford vehicle that you want, with all the customizable options, the exact color that you select, if you go out to visit them in Mount Juliet and the exact vehicle that you want is not on the lot. Two Rivers Ford's Built For You program is just one facet of their award-winning customer service, because they'll get you the exact Ford that you want, the exact color, with the exact customizable options that you select, and bring it right to your door when it is ready for you. Two Rivers Ford has the non-commissioned sales staff that puts no pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying experience. There's a reason that they're the best. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. So let's get some numbers in here before you hear from the head coach on a scale of 1 to 10. This is very concerning for sure, Josh on YouTube says, but we still have a healthy King, and the Jets' offensive line has been awful, and our pass rush has been really good. It's true. Like, if you had to have a moment where these two would both be out because of injury, then potentially we expect AJ Brown to not be able to go. I would say it's leaning towards, and it could change, it's the first day of work for them on the field this week, but I would anticipate Julio is probably not going to play. Again, it could change at some point. It's very early on, and you do need both of them down the stretch run, right? It can't just be Derrick Henry, even though it's been so far Derrick Henry through the first 3 games. And you're correct. The pass rush for the Tennessee Titans has been good, and the Jets offense looks very bad. Now, the Jets defense is not very good. And in fact, the Jets defense is good. And with the situation for them today, I saw that Marcus May, their top safety, will probably miss this game, or will miss this game, and will miss 3 to 4 weeks after that. So the Jets are taking a beating right now. But you can't listen. They did not beat the Colts enough to make me think that they're good enough to sleep on anybody, Jags, Jets, or anybody in between. Even though those two teams appear to be the 2 worst in all of professional football this year, and by quite a wide margin among all the 0-3 teams. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your concern level? I understand what Josh is saying. You may not need Julio Jones or AJ Brown. You may not need both of them in this particular game, but of course you want to monitor the situation, because both are listed with hamstring injuries, and with hamstring injuries, those tend to linger. So we will consider them, long-term prospects as they try and work their way back into the rotation, or at least back out on the practice field. Drew Acosta says, "Hey, Buck, long time no talk. I wanted to ask you 2 questions. First question, Do you think we should go ahead and sign Golden Tate? No, is the answer to your first question. Golden Tate is washed. And the second is, should J-Rob sign the 6'8", 325-pound offensive lineman that is holding up the sign that he wants to play for the Titans? Why not? Well, why not is because, if they wanted him, they would have brought him in by now. And that's respectfully. In fact, I saw that he DM'd me on Twitter, and he wants to do an interview. His name's Jalen Fly Sadler, and I believe that he played, if I'm not mistaken, at Austin Peay. So the circumstances for him kind of arose. I think he was not able to attend the combine, or Austin Peay wasn't able to have a pro day or something of that. Again, I forgive me. I'm not familiar with his situation as a whole, but I do know that he's been out there long enough that if the Titans wanted to, even put him on the practice squad, they would have done it by now. So no on Golden Tate. And as to Jalen Fly Sadler, again, respectfully, I think it's commendable what he's trying to do, and I respect him for not wanting to give up on his NFL dream. Nor should he. If he's got the time and the patience to continue what he's doing, then of course more power to him. But I would say to you right now, there's probably a reason that the Titans haven't reached out after it's been a considerable amount of time at this point. So let's get into the conversation about the wide receivers, though. Let's make sure that we stay on track. On a scale of 1 to 10, Abdul says a 4. Bring in Marcus Johnson. We're good. And Marcus Johnson, the training camp all-star who was immediately put on injured reserve to start the season, is not yet activated, but he has been cleared to return to practice, both him and Brady Breeze. So they can activate him at any point between today, when he returned to practice, and the next 21 days, including today. They can bring him back at any point, activate him, and count him towards the active roster. He can continue to practice over the course of those 21 days without taking off a roster spot right now if he's not fully ready to go. So it doesn't guarantee that he's going to be ready for Sunday, but they do, in theory, have the ability to activate him at any point between now and the next 3 weeks. The same with Adoree Jackson, right? Adoree would return or not return on certain days to practice, and then didn't end up playing basically for almost a full month, if I recall correctly, after they activated him until the Green Bay game it wasn't Christmas Eve, but it was Christmas. It was the weekend before Christmas. I feel like the Green Bay game in Green Bay, Adoree Jackson's first appearance. So it's possible, but at this point, not a given that you will have him available. Let's see. What the hell is Reynolds here for, says Will Dotson Jr. I guess they signed him to get flagged for illegal motion, which has been his greatest impact on a game so far for the Titans in the only game that he did appear in, right? He was active on game day for Seattle, and that's where the illegal motion penalty that Will is referencing came from. He was considered a healthy scratch against the Colts, and if I recall correctly, a healthy scratch against the Cardinals in week 1. So, Chester Rogers has earned the opportunities over him. It's possible that both, somebody like Josh Reynolds, who is on the active roster, and even somebody like Mason Kinsey, and theoretically, Des Fitzpatrick could be activated, could be called up to the active roster on, say, the Saturday before the game if they feel like they can give them legitimate contribution. So there are options at wide receiver. And in fact, Mike Vrabel was asked about this earlier today, about the depth of the wide receiver position by our friend Teresa Walker of the Associated Press.
You mentioned you're going to have a lengthy injury report. How are you at wide receivers?
Well, we'll see how we are today at practice. We'll see what they can do, and we'll go from there. We'll put it on an injury report after we see what they can do.
Is this a good? AJ's injury, is it a good thing that that's a position that you're kind of deep in this year? There's been years past this franchise has not been able to go as deep when one or two guys are maybe on the injury report.
Well, I think what we try to do is try to insulate ourselves everywhere for a lot of things that come up. Player availability fluctuates throughout the season, and so hopefully, everybody that shows up for meetings and comes to practice can understand that they could potentially have a role in the game.
So, not very revealing of Mike Vrabel, but, you do kind of get the point that he's trying to get across. And listen, they lived that. They put that into practice on Sunday against the Colts when in the fourth quarter, as we talked about, Julio Jones and AJ Brown weren't on the field, and you were running out there with a collection of backup skill position players, and you won the game with those backup skill position players. As I mentioned, the new wide receiver won, at least for the foreseeable future. Nick Westbrook-Akina will be on my radio show tomorrow at 11:45 Central Time. So make sure that you're listening to that live, or you can check out the podcast, The Buck Rising Show, in your favorite podcast app. Do me a solid. Let me. I haven't seen any new reviews on the radio show's podcast page. So go ahead and follow that and leave us a review, or you could leave us a nice review. You could leave us a nasty review, as long as you leave me 5 stars. Do as you like. It would make me happy either way, as long as I get the 5 stars out of it. And if they're funny, maybe we'll even read them on air tomorrow. But so Nick Westbrook-Akina, Chester Rogers, Cam Batson, Racey McMath, Josh Reynolds. I mean, considering the practice squad, you have Mason Kinsey and you have Des Fitzpatrick. It's you're okay, it feels like, with these wide receivers. Now, is it ideal? Of course not. And you still have Derrick Henry, which we'll talk about coming up next. But I'll tell you how concerned I am here in just a second, right after I tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app and an official betting partner of the NFL. Bet just $1 on any football game this week, and you can receive $150 in free bets instantly, no matter what. DraftKings Sportsbook also offers you same-game parlays, which allows you to combine multiple bets for a bigger payout. This week, place a same-game parlay on any NFL game, and you will be credited up to $25 if your bet loses. Simply download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code A2ZSports to receive $150 in free bets instantly when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's promo code A2ZSports, just like you see behind me, to get $150 in free bets instantly this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee to bet. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about the current wide receiver depth? Ethan says it's a huge concern at this point. Troy Woods is sitting on the fence with it. He's saying a 5. William Johnson says great opportunity for the lower tier wide receivers, which is exactly what Sunday against the Colts was, right? NWI caught a touchdown pass. Now he had a bad fumble, but he made good on it throughout the course of the game. It's not like you can excuse a fumble because he scored a touchdown, but the production from NWI was there. Chester Rogers also catching a touchdown pass, and Jeremy McNichols. So all 3 reserve guys coming in outside of your top line players and performing and executing. Now, maybe not on the whole, the team didn't execute particularly on offense to the standard that you expect of them, but it still was a good performance to see from the rest of those guys, because you showed that you could close out a game at the end, that you were only leading by 1 against a divisional opponent with depth on your roster. Now, we haven't talked about pass rush depth, and we'll probably spend some time on that tomorrow, given that Bud Dupree, his availability is in question. You saw that Derek Roberson and, of course, Rashad Weaver were placed on IR earlier this week. And Sharif Finch added to the practice squad. So I imagine that he may see at least be active on game day potentially, given that they are really, really thin there right now. But I will say that it is a great opportunity for those guys to be able to perform. So from that standpoint, given what the offense has and given what Ryan Tannehill is capable of, I would probably say I'm at a 4. I'm not losing my mind. It's not great to not have AJ Brown or Julio Jones potentially 4 games this early in the season. But I would say that if you had to have a time to do it, now would be early in the season against lesser opponents. And they're still NFL teams, but you can look at them as lesser opponents, given that they are a combined 0-6 between them. And they don't look like they're improving that drastically over the course from their latest loss to the next, between the Jets and the Jags, who you'll travel to next week and get your first taste of Urban Meyer and what that rivalry, quote unquote, will feature in the AFC South. But for the wide receiver depth, I'm probably sitting here at about a 4. I'm not losing my mind about it. But the thing that I'm not outright worried about, but that I'm monitoring because of this is Derrick Henry's increased workload, which we'll talk about right now. Let me know on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch in the comment section, what is one thing you would change about the Titans offense through 3 games? Let me know in the comment section. We'll talk about it together. What is one thing, whether it be how often Todd Downing runs on first down, or whether you think that Derrick Henry should see even more work with than he's already getting, which is a lot. Dom Odell says, who's to say we won't continue having this problem, though? And talking about the durability of the wide receivers. And Dom, this is the risk that you run, right? With a 32-year-old wide receiver whose season was drastically cut short last year because of injury. And also AJ, who the injuries, it's not like they're related to one another, but he has been unavailable at various points. Now, the best thing that you can say about AJ last year is that he probably should have been unavailable more, but found ways to battle through those knee issues. Hammies for a wide receiver are difficult. They are difficult to kind of push through. Not to say that a bone bruise like he was experiencing in his knee last year was easy. None of it is easy, but you would say that the potential for hamstrings to continue to arise to the detriment of the player is enough that it would cause you to keep it in the back of your mind throughout the course of the season for both of them, because apparently, according to the injury report today, even though, on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon with Mike Vrabel, it wasn't an injury that had Julio sidelined. On Monday, it turned into tightness, and on Wednesday, he's on the injury report with a hamstring. So I think that is a problem. But what one thing would you change about the Titans offense through 3 games? Easy E says the coordinator, he has no creativity. And listen, I think that Todd's been pretty good. Could it be better? I mean, like they would tell you, and as Todd's going to speak to the media tomorrow, I'm sure he would tell you it could always be better. But Chris Frazier says, stop, run. Yes, the excessive usage of Derrick Henry, it works, but for how long can it work? That is a question. Drew says he would add more play action rollouts and bubble screens. Jackie Holbert brings up a big one, which is the turnovers, right? The Tennessee Titans are second worst in the league right now, only above the Jacksonville Jags and right below, in fact, the New York Jets, whose quarterback has thrown 2 touchdowns, both of which to Corey Davis, and 2 touchdowns to 7 interceptions so far in his rookie season. So if you're working against that and you're giving up the kind of fumbles that you have, and certainly, 3 interceptions for Ryan Tannehill so far on the season, your turnover differential is going to bite you in the ass at some point if you continue on this trend. And the defense, by the way, is not creating the kind of turnovers that they were last year, so that does factor into it as well. But the one thing that I would change about about the Titans offense, I've given away my answer. The one thing that I would change, I'll tell you here in just a second, right after I would tell you about our friends at Brymak Mechanical. BRYMAK, Brymak.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. Commercial, residential, Brymak has you covered. They're the best in the business. They're a family-owned business. They have 3 locations in Tennessee, and for those of you who listen and watch us in Kentucky, because I know there's a strong contingent of Titans fans in Kentucky. BRYMAK, Brymak Mechanical, Brymak.com. So, for the purposes of the Tennessee Titans, what one thing would you change? Well, here's what I'll say. They are using Derrick Henry a lot, both as a runner and, ironically enough, as a receiver. In the screen game, in the checkdown game, they are finding ways to get Derrick Henry the ball in both ways, and it's working, right? But for the purposes of Derrick Henry's longevity, and listen, durability has never been a problem with Derrick, right? until such time as it is, we can't cite it as, well, if you use him up early in the season, then his performance will falter, because there's just literally no evidence of that through, what is this, 6 years of Derrick Henry, if I recall correctly, maybe 5 years of Derrick Henry. If memory serves, I think 5 years is correct. But Chill Mode says, I'm so sick of having to be okay with second tier players being our primary answer. Well, I don't know what that means, Chill Mode. You're going to need to expand on that. Who are you referencing as a second tier player? Are you talking about your wide receiver room right now? Expand for me, if you would. Mr. Clean says Sargent needs some play time too. Hell of a change-up run game. No, I mean, Mekhi Sargent is. Listen, he's a lovely story. He's a lovely story, but he does. I mean, it's that's all it is. You would much rather have McNichols in that spot. You would much rather have, honestly, Darrington Evans if he can get the hell on the field. The Mekhi Sargent thing is just a feel-good story for Mekhi Sargent, and more power to him. Continue to practice and play at a high level. But if we're looking at this, realistically, it's just kind of like, well, there's nothing. And I mean this respectfully. This is not an attack on Mekhi Sargent, even though it probably is starting to sound like one. There's just nothing special about it, right? He doesn't give you explosiveness in the running game. He gives you great effort, and that's all you can ask of a player who lacks special abilities. But I would not say that there is a great change-up running game opportunity with Mekhi Sargent as the person to spell Derrick Henry. Darrington Evans, you've not needed him, and it's a good thing you haven't needed him because he hadn't been available to you. But what I'm looking at is just how many touches Derrick Henry is getting. Because what I saw, Ian Hartitz, who works for Pro Football Focus, and I have my quibbles with Pro Football Focus, but I never have issue with the information that Ian provides. What he tweeted out about Derrick Henry over the last couple of days is, one, the government doesn't want you to know that Derrick Henry has more receptions on the season than Alvin Kamara, which is laugh out loud funny. And then what he also points out is Derrick Henry is on pace for a casual 521 touches, both receiving and rushing this season. That's wild. 521. He's got 80 carries so far on the season. That's 13 more than the next closest running back. There's running backs who don't even get 13 carries in a game. Derrick Henry's got 13 more than the next closest running back, sitting with 80 carries overall. And that's not even including what he's done in the passing game. He's been great. But you want him, and you've never had to worry about him before this way. So maybe I'm being unnecessarily concerned. But I would say that the one thing that I would change about how they're using Derrick Henry is just to try and find ways to take some pressure off of him. Right now, I don't think that's going to change in the next 2 weeks. Potentially, you're probably without AJ Brown for the foreseeable future, and you're probably going to be without Julio Jones on Sunday. We'll see if he gives it a go. I would be surprised if they risked it, if they're feeling that way about his longevity already in week 3, right? With the way that they sidelined him in the fourth quarter of that game against the Colts. But the best thing about Derrick is that he's available, that he's durable. He's also an incredibly special player. And there's no evidence to look at Derrick Henry and say, okay, this is going to change if they continue to feed him the ball. In fact, it's almost the opposite. Derrick Henry gets better the more times he touches the football, because the defense just gets tired of him beating the holy hell out of them. But I don't want them to, go full force Derrick Henry so early in the season and off a 2,000-yard season and a playoff. He didn't do a ton in the playoffs because they only had one playoff game. But even the postseason that he had before, I don't want that to detract what Derrick Henry can give them late in the season if I'm a Titans fan or if I'm trying to manage him. So he's a cyborg, right? He can handle it until such time as he can. And I just think that, it's what makes him incredible. I just don't want to see them test it more than need be. Now, it may be essential right now, and this is also what he's paid to do. So maybe that's not a big issue. But I talked about this today, new episode of The Install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. Greg and myself talked about this on the podcast today, as well as a great many other things. Listen to Greg on the Titans run game and on Derrick Henry's workload right now. What were your observations about Derrick Henry in this running game?
It's funny you asked me that, because I got the sense watching the tape that they challenged Lewan and Saffold this week, because their run game went predominantly to the left side of the offensive formation. And I still think they can be more consistent in their execution of their run game. I mean, Henry, I think, had a 19-yard run and a 14-yard run. And other than that, it was tough sailing.
Right.
He's been far more effective running out of 12 personnel, meaning one back and two tight ends. Excuse me. He's not as effective running out of 11 personnel, meaning one back, one tight end, and three wide receivers. So I'm sure they know this as well. But I think that the running game is still a work in progress. Look, I know Derrick Henry. I've been around him. I've stood next to him in my life. So I know what he looks like, and he's just a freak, But I just wonder, 35 carries 2 weeks ago, 28 this week. Can you do that every single week? Maybe you can. The guy the last 2 years has been freakish, and he is built differently than most. Yeah. But that's just an awful lot of carries and an awful lot of touches. And I just wonder if that can continue with 14 more games to play.
So for Derrick Henry, they are, as Greg pointed out, Lewan and Saffold played a much better game. And I think his observation is probably correct in that they probably challenged the left side of that offensive line to, hey, go out there, kick ass, take names, and don't worry about it, because you did see that kind of performance from them. It can be better, as Greg pointed out, but also, it's something it's worth monitoring, right? 14 games left in the season, and Derrick Henry is seeing the ball a ton. Dean Buckwalter says 2 or 3 game lead in the division and then let him rest. Ronnie Sneed says Greg Cosell is dead on. Greg's always dead on, man. Greg's the best. I really hope that you guys are enjoying listening to that. I feel like I keep plugging podcasts every time that I talk to you guys, but I really hope that you're enjoying that podcast that we're doing every Wednesday as much as I enjoy doing it. And as much as Greg lives for this stuff. Right. I don't know when he sleeps. I don't know when he eats. He seems to never leave that room outside of on Sundays when I see him doing the NFL matchup show with Sal Palantonio and Matt Bowen on ESPN. But I hope that you guys are really, really enjoying the Cosell podcast. It's called The Install. If you haven't given it a follow yet, and also if you would like to leave us reviews or 5-star ratings there, we would greatly appreciate those as well. They are always Greg likes to joke that he's an Uber driver. So if you leave Greg 5 stars, he'll make sure you get your money's worth. So what I will say to you is that it's just fair to wonder, right? It doesn't mean that they need to move away from it. It doesn't mean that it's not the right approach. Derrick Henry is spectacular at just persevering. So it's just something I'm curious about to see if he can continue to do it. He had 35 carries against the Seahawks. It's wild. It's just wild. No other running back is doing it like that and continuing to do it like that. I love the one clip of Titans highlights of the Batson TD. You can hear out. Batson didn't catch a touchdown chill mode, so I'm not sure whether you're talking about McNichols or NWI or Chester Rogers. You can hear Lewan yell out, "It's you and me, Raj," after the ball snaps. So I don't know. Maybe has Batson had a touchdown in a regular season game? I don't think so this year. So maybe you're confusing a play or confusing a player. But either way, check out The Install. And we went into depth about Tom Brady going back to New England this weekend. We did a lot of fun games that you guys are going to look forward to. So with that being said, Derrick Henry's workload, I'm not like worried about it, but I'm just monitoring the situation at this point. Do you think Henry should get NFL MVP consideration? Says Twin. I mean, it's week 4. I don't really care about the MVP. I know that's important to you guys, or at least it's important to some of you. I mean, he's not a quarterback. It's a quarterback award. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. It's just not a running back award. You know, I'm not. Henry is an incredibly important piece of what they do. But, and I don't want it to sound like I'm dismissing Derrick Henry, but I just don't think it's a running back award. The most valuable position on the football field is the quarterback, and the most valuable quarterback is going to win the MVP. So, you know, if he does back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons, if he gets to 1,500 yards, I'll be impressed. If he does 2,000, then I mean they really ought to think about it. But it's just not a running back award. So, you know, fairly or unfairly, I don't necessarily think that's fair, but this is how people vote on the MVP at this point. So, and you have to consider how infrequently people watch, and maybe that'll change because of Derrick. I mean, Derrick gets talked about a lot in a lot of different places, and he's a highlight reel. He gets the Titans a hell of a lot more attention than they would otherwise, even with Julio and AJ and Tannehill and Simmons and all the other stuff. But I just don't think that there's enough momentum there to get a running back an MVP award in today's game, right? But you never know. Maybe we'll see. He's certainly building a Hall of Fame resume. So it would be criminal if he finds a way to continue to stack up incredible performances and fantastic seasons and lasts physically through all of it. I just until it happens, I don't know that it's not impossible, is what I'll say. Let's just leave it at that. All right. Pound Henry says Lewis just need 45 carries. No, what are you trying? What are you, Lewis? What are you doing? You're an insane person. 45 carries? It's dumb. It's so dumb. You don't need to do that. Who was the last running back that got MVP consideration? Well, I mean, Derrick got MVP consideration last year, but he didn't get votes, right? He was one of the people that was available for the voters to vote on, but he didn't get a single vote for MVP, and that was with 2,000 yards. So, I wouldn't get bent out of shape about it. It's just not worth the energy. It's not worth the energy to do so. And if it somehow miraculously happens, then more power to you. But it's not a thing at this point for Derrick Henry. Consistent trash, says Chris Frazier. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not it may not be fair, but it's just kind of the rules, or not the rules, but the unwritten rules of the MVP voting. All right, let's talk about speaking of unwritten rules, let's talk about what Keith Bullock had to say earlier today on social media about Taylor Lewan. Now, we didn't play this clip for you. I'm sure many of you have seen Taylor Lewan, the video that I took and tweeted out from the A to Z Sports account, put on Instagram, of Taylor Lewan after the game. Had a good game. You know, he had a moment where I can't remember if he was asked about being booed by the fans or what it felt like to be back out in front of the fans after getting booed. Either way, Taylor Lewan was talking about being booed by the fans, and he wasn't happy about it, right? So this video is courtesy of me after the game on Sunday in the tunnel under Nissan Stadium where they bring the players out for interviews. Taylor Lewan talking about his situation and how he just feels hurt about the fan base. The question is, do you agree or disagree with Keith Bullock's statement on Taylor Lewan and his approach to this particular situation? Now, if you haven't seen Keith's comments, we'll put them up on the screen for you as well after you hear from Lewan. But do you agree or disagree with Keith Bullock's statements on Taylor Lewan on social media? While you guys get involved, I'll let you know about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com is where you go for your dream address without the stress. GaryAshton.com is the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans. They're the best because they get you the best intel and the best properties in Middle Tennessee. Some of the properties may not even be on the market. You have to make sure that you're having all of the information humanly possible at your disposal. That's what the Ashton team provides to you when you visit them at GaryAshton.com. The best in the business. They got me my dream address without the stress as we sit here broadcasting in my home office from the first home that I ever bought. There's nobody else that I would go through that process with again other than Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. So, do you agree with Keith Bullock and what he had to say on social media about Taylor Lewan? Well, let's hear from Lewan first, and then we'll show you 3 of Keith's tweets in response to the situation that's currently happening between Taylor and Titans fans.
I cruised back on the field, and our PA announcer, I think his name is Matt, just got the job. First game, right? Announces that I'm back in the game. And these fans go and start booing. Now, here's the deal. I don't know what that's all about. Like, I'm coming back from the ACL, 10 months. Like, it's a difficult process. And, yeah, I wasn't playing well at all. That was a really hard game to get over emotionally, mentally. That light went out. Like, that's how it went. The lights just went out week 1. That's a perfect metaphor for all of it. It was a really shitty deal. You guys are never going to be able to use any of this on cable. But, like, it was... Man, I really wish I could have articulate how difficult that was, and it was just hard to hear the fans after 7-8 years of as much as I tried to do for the city boo. When I came back out there, that was I remember looking over at Ben, and he looked at me and smiled and shook his head, and I was like, damn, that's crazy how fast they just turned, and I'll never forget that. And it was a difficult 24 hours, a difficult 36 hours, a difficult 48 hours. And, yeah, that was hard.
So, for Taylor, he's clearly upset about it. And he talked again about it on the podcast. He did another episode with Will Compton on Bussin' with the Boys today. It's out available for you now. You can go watch it for yourself if you like. But, Keith Bullock, who, of course, is one of the Titans' best and most famous players and has been a hugely successful leader of men in many different assets, also now in the business world, he made some comments on social media about this. Now he's tweeting it at 1045 The Zone, so I assumed that 3HL was talking about it today in the way that I assume Keith was responding to something. I don't know if Keith was on 3HL today or if he was just tweeting it at them during the course of their show while he was listening to the radio. But and I'll show you Keith's comments here in just a second. Now, what Keith is probably responding to is the same thing that we're all kind of looking at this like. I respect what Taylor is saying. Absolutely respect what Taylor Lewan is saying, what he's feeling. I also think that when you do something like that immediately after a game, whether you mean to or not, you stop making it about your team's win and your team's success and talking about your teammates, and you make it about you. And, that's Taylor's right. If he wants to do it, clearly he doesn't have a problem doing it. And his teammates, Taylor, people love Taylor Lewan in the Titans locker room. Like the players aren't bent out of shape because of what Taylor did. The players probably identify a great deal with what Taylor's going through because he wasn't the only one being booed on Sunday in week 1 against the Cardinals. But what Keith says, and we'll show you these tweets from him earlier today, because I think Keith makes a lot of really good points. You're upset because the crowd booed you. People have been booed before you and will be booed after you. Media cutting these players so much slack. If you get booed, play better. Don't talk about it. Be about it. And he's tweeting this at the radio station. He goes on to say, you can't be somebody's daddy and then ask for forgiveness. If you are a leader of the pack, take it how it comes, with the shrug emoji. Again, he's tweeting this at 1045 The Zone. He goes on to say, I like Taylor Lewan, 77, and wasn't at the game. He's a baller, and he'll be fine. Just saying this Twitter ain't the forum for support. Go out there, punish people, then host them on Bussin' with the Boys. And Keith is so spot on. in all of that analysis, and let this be the last time that we talk about Taylor Lewan and how fans feel about Taylor Lewan. Until such time as Taylor himself brings it up again, if he does, and maybe he will, maybe he won't, whatever. I don't care. I don't care how Taylor conducts his business. I'm just saying, it's our job to talk about it and to, take fans' reaction to it and discuss it with any light that we can shed on the situation. Lots of just says tell him to grow some nuts. Well, I mean, what I don't care about all that. Like I said, I completely understand why Taylor's upset about it. I totally get it. I think that more athletes probably feel that way. Taylor's just comfortable enough voicing it. MB says, who cares? Play better and fans won't complain. It's a production-based business. And he played great against Indianapolis. But he's setting himself up for more scrutiny if he has any kind of a slip up the rest of the season, basically. To go back and say, well, shut up and dribble is basically what fans are going to keep telling Taylor Lewan. And, I don't think he should. I like that he's honest. I like that he's open. So few athletes are, but I also get why, if you're in a team setting, in a team environment, and somebody's talking about how they felt in their individual situation and on and on and on it goes, it doesn't help him at all, right? There's nothing there. And maybe it just helps him to talk about it, right? Talking helps. I know football is not normally associated with mental health, certainly, but there should be more mental health awareness in football. And I don't really care about grunt, drool, growl, hand in the dirt, blah, blah, blah football. Like man card, all that crap. It's a waste of time for me. But, for Taylor, what Keith is saying to him is, I think, completely valid advice, and how a lot of people, yourselves included, many of you, feel the way that you feel. Let's be real. Let's be real, man. No one expects an offensive lineman to chirp the way that Lewan does. No, in fact, that's why I love that he does, right? Because God bless our offensive linemen, so very boring to talk to on a regular basis. I remember when Kendall Lamb got signed with the Titans. Kendall Lamb's a great talker. He really seems to enjoy it. And when he signed with the team, we did a Zoom with him. And I remember, there was conversation about, man, we really need Kendall Lamb not to suck because he's a great quote. And quotes don't win football games, right? But just for the purposes of for good storytelling, Taylor's great for that. But I get why it can get tiresome to fans because it's 8 years of this at this point, and he's just going to be the same guy. Good for him. He's comfortable being Taylor Lewan. That's more than a lot of people can say about being comfortable with who they are or themselves. Buck, you down like my comments? LOL. Says Theron, I didn't see your comments. That's actually the first comment that you saw. It's always funny when people think that I see every one of their comments and I'm picking and choosing. No, I'm doing a million different things right now, and it's the best I can do to keep up with anybody's comments at this point and also keep my train of thought. So, Keith Bullock speaking truth. Taylor, I think, is going to be fine. But for Titans fans, I understand the frustration. I do. But it's probably not going to change. That's the show for tonight. One more primetime show left to do this week. I'm excited to head out to New York on Saturday and to cover the Jets game for you guys. We'll do primetime from MetLife Stadium if all goes according to plan. And either way, we'll be doing primetime from New York. I just have to make sure that the Jets PR staff is comfortable with me doing New York and California are probably going to have stricter rules. And oddly enough, Seattle was pretty, at least in the stadium, was pretty lax with all of the protocols. But anyway, so primetime on Sunday night will be in New York City. And the install with Greg Cosell is out and available to you now. There is going to be a 615 Sessions podcast with Joe Rexroad, with Teron Davenport, and myself. We're going to do it Friday after Titans practice to get the full week of storylines in and then talk about it before the game. And also the radio show on 104.5 The Zone will be a lot of fun tomorrow too. Nick Westbrook-Akina will be there. We will also have Mike Giardi of the NFL Network because we're going to talk a lot about Tom Brady going back to New England for the first time, and Mike covers the Patriots. He lives in Boston, and he's been a part of the vast majority of Tom Brady's career in New England. So I know that he's going to look forward to as well. He knows Mike Vrabel pretty well. In fact, Giardi for the NFL Network is oftentimes in our press conferences when they're held virtually. That's going to do it for us this evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I will talk to you tomorrow on the radio show on primetime, or if you listen to the podcast, I'm talking to you in a bunch of different places. So I hope you're enjoying it, and we will see you then.